Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to this edition of the Best Ever You Show. I'm your host, Elizabeth Hamilton-Guarino, and with me is guest Cathy Katin-Grazzini. Cathy is a new author with HCI, and she is the author of the book, Love the Foods That Love the Planet. She also has another book, which we'll talk about in a little bit, but for now, we're going to focus on Love the Foods That Love the Planet. Welcome to the Best Ever You Show, Cathy.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth. Love being here.
Yeah, it's great to have you here. So you have another book, just so everybody knows. This is a little bit of a series going on that I spy here, but Love the Foods That Love You Back. That's
Correct.
your first book. And so now we have Love the Foods That Love the Planet. What's
Right.
the difference between the two?
Well, the first book has more of a health focus. It's all about eating to, maximize our health and our well-being. And it's, chock full of wonderful plant-based recipes that really lower inflammation in the body and revamp your gut microbiome and do all sorts of wonderful things to just enhance our health, protect us from chronic illnesses, help us lose weight, the whole gamut. Um, and that was the first book. The new book, which was just out a couple of months ago, Love the Foods That Love the Planet, has an environmental focus because that's become I'm a sustainable chef. And I've just been over the last several years gone really deep on eating for the planet because the world that we're living in is spinning out of control environmentally. And people don't realize how easy and how delicious and how fun it is to just shift our eating patterns a little bit in the right direction to really help lower greenhouse gas emissions. It's so easy to do. And when I was, doing my research for the book, I was just so blown away by what I was learning. I really wanted to share this with people because when it comes to the climate, I don't know if you have found this, but when I talk to people about climate change or the planet, either people glaze over because they're so overwhelmed and they feel the problem is so enormous and they feel so powerless, they kind of disengage. And actually, there's so much that we can do so easily, starting with our forks, that people don't realize how impactful it could be. So I wanted to, bring hope to people and show them a way forward that can be so beneficial to our health, to our planetary health, and to wildlife as well.
I love this book. I have a copy of it. And when it was here, and I say when it was here, and I'll explain that in a minute. When it was here at home with me, I was thumbing through it. I'm like, this is a really good book. It's hardcover. It's got great pictures. It's just really a thoughtful book to help us all do our best to help the planet and so forth. But what was interesting about it also is that I have four boys. The people listening might know that they're 23, 25, 27, and 29. And each of them picked it up, looked at it. They're like, oh, this is a cool book, Mom. Who's this? Blah, blah, blah. And then one of them took it with them. Him and his fiance took it. And they're like, this is mine. And so, and he has a master's degree in environmental science from New Haven by you there in Connecticut. And so,
Yeah.
um, is that who you wanted to appeal to?
Well, I am greatly flattered that he took the book, especially, with the background that he has. That's the biggest compliment I could get. So that's very gratifying. But I actually wrote this for every man, every woman, just the average person we're so consumed with life's issues and problems and just getting by and our communities, our kids and all the rest of it. We're pretty disengaged by from the planet and what's going, all that's going on with climate change. It comes up in the media whenever you have a crisis like what's going on in LA right now with the fires. It was just devastating. Or the hurricanes and tropical storms just a couple of months ago in Florida and North Carolina and so forth. There are moments when our crazy media cycle will just bring it front and center, but for the most part, it's in the background. And so I wanted to write for everybody because it's really going to be up to us at this point to really save our poor planet. It's just not happening quickly enough with our political leadership and internationally, domestically. We've been, hacking away at it. There's new technology coming, things are evolving, but we're burning more fossil fuels than ever before. We, last year and this year broke all records, and the climate, if you looked at the graphs in the book and online, you would see that the temperatures are just spiraling out of control, which is why we're having such dramatic weather events and fires and all the rest of it. So I wanted to empower all of us, because this is a planetary issue. This is a global, every person sort of issue. It's all hands on deck, to sort of give people the tools that they need to so easily, make a difference. So that's who I wrote it for.
Well, if you're just joining us, we are speaking with Cathy. Now I'm going to mess it up, Cathy. Cathy I can say it. Cathy Katin. I can't say it actually.
I'll say it.
Yeah, you go for it. I just messed it up again.
It's a mouthful. So my last name, we stuck our two names together, which is why it's a stumbling block. It's Katin-Grazzini. Yeah.
Cathy Katin-Grazzini. I needed a refresher there. Oh boy. So we're just going to call you Cathy the whole time, but you're a plant-based chef.
That's fine by me.
Yeah, plant-based chef, a recipe developer, and author of 2 books. The first one is Love the Foods That Love You Back. And then this other one is called, I'm going to read the whole thing here. Love the Foods That Love the Planet, Recipes to Cool the Climate and Excite the Senses. Now, one of the things that you talk about here is helping the planet by helping yourself to plant-based recipes. And you help us by understanding what to eat, knowing how it's produced, and its impact on our planet. That is really interesting.
Yeah, it's, people don't realize that the food sector, it's something that's just not talked about nearly as much. We talk about electricity and, and motor vehicles and all the rest of it. But the food sector generates over 1/3 of total greenhouse gas emissions. And 3/4 of those emissions, well, not quite 3/4, a little less than that, is generated by animals, livestock, and all the feed crops that are grown to feed them. So it has an enormous impact on, it's not just animal agriculture. That's the main culprit here that's driving greenhouse gas emissions in food. But it's a big piece of it. There are a couple of other commodities that are way up there, like, I'm sorry to say, like chocolate and coffee, that are just grown so unsustainably. They have major greenhouse gas effects as well. But most of the time, when you're eating for the planet, you're eating the way our great grandparents ate, frankly. If you just turn back the clock a little bit, you're eating the fruits of the earth, the simple produce that grows out of the land, the whole grains, the legumes, the vegetables, the fruits and nuts and seeds and that kind of thing, because they barely make a blip. They're just like so much lower in terms of the impacts of land use, of water use, of greenhouse gas emissions, and all our resources, that if we even just move a little bit in that direction, one recipe at a time, you can really start lowering your own individual climate footprint, really. And if you go all the way, you can slash that by 75%, according to Oxford University. So wow. It really has a huge impact on what's ailing our planet right now.
So if you were to turn into the, look into the book, and start flipping around, what kind of recipes can readers expect? Do you have some favorites that you put in there of yours, or?
Oh, yeah. Well, there's a lot that's going on here. So first of all, the recipe sections, there are 8 chapters, and it really runs the gamut. I start with seasonings and sauces and dressings, that sort of thing, in the first chapter. And we go on to appetizers, small bites, starters. And then I have soups, which at this time of the year is like my go-to. I have soups and salads, sandwiches. There's a chapter on breads, quick breads, and also sourdough breads, all different kinds of breads, crackers, crepes. There are side dishes, there are main dishes. I even have a chapter on celebratory dishes when you have a little more time and you want to do something festive for the holidays or a special occasion. And of course, we end with sweets because, no cookbook would be replete without a dessert section. So that's and the recipes themselves, some of them, are original right out of my noggin. But many of them, I draw my inspiration as a chef from the rich culinary traditions from all over the world. So what's really fun about the cookbook is it's really a travelogue. You can travel in your mind's eye to remote places, and the flavor profiles from Morocco and from Persia and from Denmark and Japan and West Africa and all over the place. There are recipes peppered throughout the book. That have ingredients and the flavor profiles, the spices, the herbs, and so forth from these wonderful age-old, time-tested traditions. And what's unique also about the cookbook, which makes it more of an environmental cookbook, is on every recipe, I give greenhouse gas emissions for a key ingredient in that recipe and what's driving those numbers. So, just reading each recipe, you begin to understand what's happening in the food system, what it counts for greenhouse gases with, what we're growing and what we're eating. And it's just an educational sort of thing. And I also have highlights on most of the recipes that might talk about the country of origin and what challenges they're facing with the climate, or it might be climate hero, whole grains and legumes that are really resilient and that we should be eating more of because it really helps farmers hedge their risks, and it's super healthy for our gut microbiomes. Oh, by the way. So, just information that people may not appreciate, before they look into the book, they may not know. So it's just a way to inspire people and to motivate them to make some changes in their lives for the better.
Feels like a little bit more than a cookbook too. There's a little bit of love behind it.
Yeah, there's
What's
a lot of love. Yeah.
what's your website so that people can find you?
Yeah, it's Cathy's with a C, no apostrophe, Cathy's Kitchen Prescription.com. And you can go there, you can learn more about me, you'll see information about both cookbooks. And I put out a food blog, on a monthly basis for people that sign up for my newsletter. They'll get a copy of it might be a bunch of recipes that I'm working on, or some new information either about the climate or about our health, or related topics, so people can take advantage of that as well.
Are you, can we take a sidetrack over to food allergies for a moment? Because
Sure.
I'm a human being with 4 life-threatening food allergies. I'm 55 now, and I've had food anaphylaxis since I was about 24.
Wow.
And yeah, I'm allergic to peanut, tree nut, fish, and shellfish.
Mhm.
So we have a lot of members of the Best Ever You community and of the FACT community, FAACT, who band together and talk about food allergies and food allergies in kids. And sometimes cookbooks can become really frustrating to us because there's so much in them with nuts and
Mhm.
fish and all the things that we can't eat. So we're like, oh, I really love this cookbook, but I can't eat that. Do
Yeah.
you, I dream of, now that I know you, I'm like, I dream of writing a book with you called Love the Foods That Heal You from Food Allergies or
Well,
something. Oh,
yeah.
the worst.
Absolutely. Well, I think I don't use many nuts. I'm trying to think if there are, I mean, if there are any at all, and I'm just
It's
gonna,
okay if there are or aren't. We
I
don't.
don't even think there are, just
I
look,
didn't notice many actually. That's
um,
that's why I brought it up. I'm like,
there are, I mean, maybe a little pine nuts on my crostatini, as a
oh,
garnish. There's one recipe, I think in the small bites, which involve peanuts, but that can easily be just
yeah.
omitted. But pretty much, this is good for most people. I have an awful lot of gluten-free recipes throughout the book. I would say, half of them at least. Um,
Fabulous.
so there's and it's a very focused on whole grains, so you'll have unusual whole grains because it's actually really, really healthy for us to eat wide in the plant-based kingdom, not get away from wheat, get away from rice, even corn. These are three commodities. 90% of the cereal grains that we consume are in those three different products, those crops. And yet they're all under assault from climate change right now. And the most resilient grains come from Asia and come from Africa. So you're looking at amaranth and teff, and from the north, buckwheat and sorghum, and so there's so many other grains to play with. There's some wheat recipes in the bread recipe as well, but not exclusively so. So I'm really trying to give people, there's some rye in here too, which isn't great for gluten-free folks, but again, all of us should be eating wide in the plant-based kingdom, to really maximize the health impacts and to lower our risks. My husband has a sesame allergy, so that's our particular thing that we have to be very careful with. But food allergies are all too common and becoming more common as people's, so much of our diet relies on today, sadly, on processed foods.
Yeah.
And very inflammatory, meats and dairies that are problematic for many, many people, and they develop sensitivities and even allergies or IBS, or there are all sorts of impacts. It really depends. But this is, again, even though the focus is more environmental, just like my other book, it's these foods really bring down inflammation in the body, and oxidative stress. So they sort of, they're the and I don't even use cooking oils, believe it or not.
Really?
So yeah, and I don't use salt, and I don't use refined sugars. So you're really eating wonderfully flavorful foods, but avoiding a lot of problematic ingredients for many people. So it's an adventure in eating.
Yeah, and I appreciate you going into that. I know the book's about kind of something entirely different, but it just seems like it all ties in, and you feel like a really good resource for people who might have questions regarding, food allergies. Food allergies are so frustrating
Yeah.
because you just want to participate with everybody's food. I mean, food's so celebratory, and like you said earlier, it's so much fun to have a Valentine's Day night out eating and this and
Yeah.
that, and
Eating out is, yeah, I agree with you.
so
Eating
dangerous.
out
So
is,
it can be terrifying with food.
terrifying. You take your
Yeah,
life in your hands, and a lot of times, even restaurants try to do right, but
yeah,
servers don't always know, or they don't always convey the information, and you need your EpiPens and your uh
everything.
yeah, Benadryl or whatever.
911 and your Benadryl and your
Yeah,
water and all of it.
yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, so I appreciate you going there because we have such a wide audience, and there are a lot of gluten-free people too. So great.
Yeah.
I love the fact that it's sort of something for everyone, and you're a resource we can trust, and you know how to cook for us because
Yeah,
it's really
yeah,
frustrating.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
and heal us.
You just learn a couple of new tricks in the kitchen. It's not difficult. This is, for beginner cooks as well as people that know their way around the kitchen. You don't have to be a professional chef to be healthy.
Yeah.
But you do, my other purpose in writing the book, in both books actually, is to coax people back into the kitchen at all, because
Right.
so many people have, I don't know if you find that up in Maine, but it's certainly true in my world, that people have stopped cooking, or
Wow.
especially people. I'm sorry to say, I'm happy to say that among the younger cohorts that I work with and that I know, there seems to be a bit of a resurgence. So that really is makes me joyful to see younger kids cooking together and really getting into reclaiming their health and doing it for the planet as well. But especially women of a certain age, my age, and younger even. I'm a little bit older than you are. They've, their kids are out of the house. They hang up their aprons and they say, "I'm done," and they do that at their peril, unfortunately,
Yeah.
because they're not going to find health with takeout and with restaurants and so forth. And with processed foods, they're convenient, but they are not great for our health. And they're,
Oh,
high in fat, high in sodium, low in fiber. All these things are really bad for us. And they're convenient, but you pay a big price.
yeah. Yeah. And I'm going to go back to the food allergy community for 1 second and then I'll get off of it.
Mm,
Yeah, there's nothing more frustrating. And you'll look at the blogs or look at, the social media and stuff like that. And somebody will be like, hey, I found a nut free, allergy free, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, oh, it's processed food. It's like the
yeah.
last thing your little human being needs.
Uh,
It's just more inflammation. Trust me, I've had this forever. And the best way to deal with all of it is like to clean eat as best you can and
Indeed.
lose the inflammation part of it. And then I won't say the allergies go away, but they seem to manage a little bit better.
I agree with you. You can manage it better, and you're doing the best thing. Some allergies are not reversible.
Oh,
If prevention is always best. But you can, not only just you can protect yourself in so many other ways from chronic illnesses
yeah.
and overweight and obesity and in other inflammatory conditions that happen that are mostly dietarily caused, sadly. So yeah, it's very powerful. I mean, my journey, even in this whole eating and cooking and all of this, started many years ago when my husband had a real health scare, and we flipped our lifestyles, like a sort of overnight, and we never looked back because the results were so phenomenal.
Yeah.
So it's people, you can't always get it in a pill or a procedure. In fact, you won't get it there.
Right.
Sometimes they're necessary, but they're not sufficient. They don't protect us adequately. They don't prevent it, and you can't always, you can manage a condition, but it will continue to worsen slowly over time. Whereas you change your lifestyle, you stay active, you eat healthfully, and you try to get stress down in your life, and that's a formula for well-being, going forward.
Yeah. Otherwise, things tend to fester. Um, the I've got some more questions for you. Can you hang around a little bit more?
Yeah, you bet.
Okay. Um, Tell us, are you perfect in everything that you eat all the time? So, for example, if I'm sitting here or somebody's listening and they're like, "Oh, I really want to do this. I really want to change up the way I eat and do all this clean eating and exercise more and all of these things,"
Mhm,
but it feels a little overwhelming.
mhm.
Do you think you could make some small steps or small suggestions for us
Oh, sure.
we could implement?
It seems so monumental in the beginning, and
Yeah.
and nobody can, like, you have to be really scared to death, to really leap in a whole brave new world, in one fell swoop. Many times, everybody does what's right for them, but many times incremental steps work easier for people. Just start wherever you are. Just start with one recipe, and see how you like it, and make it your own, and then you can take and the truth with exercising too, sometimes if you're sedentary and you haven't been out there, start 10 minutes a day, a couple of times a week, and build on that week by week as you're able to do it. And if you fall off the wagon, don't give up. Tomorrow's another day. Every day is fresh, and we're all human. Life gets in the way. I just came back from a 3 week trip, a very happy trip, to celebrate my son's engagement, to a wonderful woman, but her family's from India. So we just spent 3 weeks in India,
Oh, cool.
traveling. It was just phenomenal. But the food was very different. I couldn't control everything, that I wasn't cooking, and we did the best we could. And, it was a finite amount of time. And then now we're back home, and we're able to, clean things up and
Yep.
get back on our wagons. So yeah, I don't think you shouldn't. What is the expression that um the enemy of the good. Perfection shouldn't be the enemy of the, do you know that
The
expression?
well-intentioned, yeah, I don't know, but
I
yeah, I
don't
get
know.
what
I
you're
forget
saying,
how it
yeah.
goes, but anyway,
Make up our own just there.
we just do the best we can. And just, if you do, the more you do it, the bigger the payoff. The bigger
Mhm.
you feel better, your energy rebounds, different, you can reverse so many conditions if you have diabetes, or if you're overweight, or, chronic, just so many autoimmune conditions and cardiovascular, the gamut of everything that plagues us, many cancers as well. You can manage them, and you can even reverse some of these conditions, especially, the sooner you begin.
Yeah.
But we, the one day, the 2 days, if you have to disrupt your schedules, if you're traveling or whatever, just, you try to plan as best you can, and then you have to live your life and make do. And just when you're back in control in your environment, then you can start over again if you need to.
Okay. Take us to our kitchens,
Hmm.
and we're going to become environmentally conscious cooks.
Oh, great. Love it.
What's that look like? What's that feel like? What's that smell like? What's that taste like?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I love your imagery, because this is such a sensory, and sensual way of cooking and of eating, because we're using our noses and our taste buds and our eyes, our ears, even, it's just completely involving. Um, I would say, though, from an environmental point of view, there are just three easy guidelines that I would offer for folks. One is, think about it this way: we want to eat as low on the food chain as we can. And we want to favor, to the extent that we can, step by step, sustainably grown plants over animals. And there's a whole nice chart in the cookbook, in the front chapter, that kind of lays out what are the big drivers of climate change in terms of emission, to the little teeny weeny ones that barely have an impact. And so you want to eat low on that chart. You want to favor unprocessed foods over ultra processed foods, so minimally processed or unprocessed. You want to be in your kitchens, but you don't have to be a slave to your kitchen. Cook big batches of things, keep it simple. During the week, you can eat very simply, from a couple of dishes that don't have to take more than a half an hour, to prepare. It doesn't have to be any more impactful than any other way that you're eating right now. It's just a little bit of planning, maybe learning a couple of new things that you haven't done before, but nothing complicated. And lastly, I would say, waste not. Over a third of all food-related greenhouse gas emissions come from food waste and food loss. From 30 to 50% in some markets never makes it to people's mouths. It ends up in the landfills, where it can generate enormous amounts of methane, just like ruminant animals produce methane when they burp and so forth. Well, the landfills are just as bad, and methane is a really terribly polluting greenhouse gas, 28 times worse than carbon dioxide. It stays in the atmosphere for trapping heat for 28 years. So we want to get our methane down, and we want to waste as little as possible. So what does that mean in your kitchen? Well, don't overbuy. Sometimes retailers sell in such bulk that things rot in your refrigerator before you can get to them. So buy sensibly that way. Date your leftovers. If you have leftovers, I do this all the time. I just have a little bit of masking tape and a marker, and I put on the date, because things spoil after about 5 days or so. So you want to be mindful of how to reuse certain foods before it's too late. And then be creative. And the cookbook will help you do this. I have a couple of really fun recipes that do this in the cookbook. Repurpose foods that otherwise would be tossed. Like, I have one of my favorite recipes, just because it's so environmentally loving the planet, is my asparagus recoup soup. Which I make with the woody stems of those asparagus spears that people break off and toss.
Yeah.
And you can cook them separately. Very quick and easy recipe. It makes the most delicious, velvety, smooth, blended soup that's so flavorful. And I make homemade croutons. You don't have to, but if you want to have a garnish for that recipe, I make croutons out of, stale bread. Or I've even used the crumbs of shredded wheat that end up in the package, and people like, what do I do with this? I don't want to eat this as cereal anymore. There are little shreds of shredded wheat. Well, you just begin to think more creatively about the things we toss, because most of the time, as long as it's not moldy and it's not spoiled, it's perfect for just to refashion a little creatively and make it into a totally different food. Crumbs like that and parts of crackers and so forth make fantastic crackers. They can be kneaded into bread, or they can make croutons, as I said. It's just a mindset more than anything else. So those three things: eating low on the food chain, unprocessed, and being mindful and creative about wasting less, would be my top guidelines for the home cook.
I love it. Well, it has certainly been fabulous having you here.
Oh,
I kind of want to ask before we go, like, what are pretty apple packets? But I don't know if I'm opening up a.
no,
I
that's an original recipe.
make me hungry.
Yeah, I have a couple of these in the back of the book. They're different desserts, and my pretty apple packets, great for this time of the year when apples are really yummy, is just a really it's a kind of a recipe you might want to do. It's a bit of an arts and very simple, but arts and crafts sort of thing, where you're rolling a little bit of dough and you're wrapping slices of apples with a little laminating apricot paste, which I make just from dried unsulfured apricots. You just reconstitute them into like a jam in your microwave. And so I'm spreading that on the apple slices and then wrapping them up in this little bit of dough so that it looks like a little present, with a bow on top.
Cute.
And they're really fun, very elegant looking, but not really complicated. It's just like 5 ingredients that go into it to make a pretty dessert.
Yeah. The one other thing I wanted to give a shout out to, cookbook photography is tricky.
Mm.
Who did the photography for your
I'm
cookbook?
so glad you said that. So
Yeah.
my photographer for both cookbooks is my loving husband, Giordano, who is a photographer, as an avocation. But it's something we have so much fun styling our food and shooting it and editing it and so forth. So he is for both books, he's done all the photography. And people can't see the book here, but it's a very visual cookbook. Every recipe has, a wonderful photo, sometimes a 2-page spread. So it makes a really pretty gift as well, because it's so visual.
Yeah. And how was it working with our crew at HCI? Because I'm a fellow HCI author with you, and I love them so much.
Yes, phenomenal. I had
Yeah.
such a great experience with Darcy and with Lindsay and, the whole crowd over there. So easy to work with, so accommodating. They basically just wanted me to bring my vision forward and to support me as I, curated these recipes. They couldn't have been more supportive and easier to work with. It was such a pleasure. I loved HCI.
Yeah. Yeah. I just signed on for another book with them, so I'm all excited.
Oh,
My third,
congratulations.
yeah, my third book with them, The Peace Guide, is
Wow.
coming out. Yeah, they're family. So I'm glad that you're having a great experience with them, because I can't move enough author friends over to them.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it's like,
It's a great publisher, and
yeah.
just, so great to their authors as well. Really
Yeah.
special.
Yeah, really, really respectful, and yeah, they treat you like family coming in. So, and it shows in the book too. You get the book, and it's just like, well, here's some more love. So, I hope people go grab your book, and I hope people go to your blog, which is Kathy. I wrote it down.
Yeah,
Kathy's Kitchen
kitchen
Prescription.
prescription. Yeah, prescription.
Yeah, I'll put a
They
link.
can also find me on Instagram if they're just looking for pictures. You can see sort of a top read of just an array of things that I've done.
Okay. And so the book again is Love the Foods, Love the Planet. And Kathy's website is kathys kitchen prescription.com. I'll put links to both in the show. Kathy, is there anything that we missed or that you want to share with us before we go?
Yeah, not really. I would just say, don't get depressed by the climate.
Mm,
Take action is the most empowering thing you can do. It's the best antidote to eco-anxiety that exists out there. People feel like they can't make a difference. They can, as I said, you can lower your carbon footprint by up to 3/4 in your household just by shifting how you eat. It is a huge impact. And if we change how we eat, it changes consumer demand. It changes what growers grow. It can really move the needle, and we all need to pitch in right now. So I thank you, Elizabeth, for the giving me this opportunity to reach folks out there in your world, and to inspire people and give them hope, because 2025, we're up against some scary things, but this is not rocket science. This is something that's so easy to do. So I want people to feel encouraged by that, and to take a step in the right direction.
I love it. Well, it was great getting to know you. Congratulations on your book. All the best success with it. I hope you'll come back. We'll do like maybe a video in the summer.
I
Uh,
love it.
yeah. And everybody, thank you so much for listening to the Best Ever You show. Visit us at besteveryou.com. It's free to become a member if you want to write for us. We love our writers. Anything that goes up on the website, we put into our magazine. And when we love our podcasts, again, we don't do very much advertising out in the universe, maybe a little bit of social media ads now and then. So everything is totally grassroots. It's dependent on you telling someone that you heard the guest, you heard about the book, you heard about the show, whatever it is. We are totally word of mouth, and we have millions of downloads on this radio show. And I really appreciate every single one of you. We've been doing this since 2010, and I love you all. And this is our second show in for 2025, and I'm just grateful that you're here. And I can't wait to see who else comes onto the show in 2025. And Cathy, I can't wait to have you back. So thank you.
Thank you.
All right, everybody, take care. Have a great day. Thanks for listening.